sort of honesty, really, being honest with yourself, being honest with your staff. If there are some issues, being honest with your customers. If something doesn't work, you need to do something else. But really, sort of, really being thoughtful and considered in what you do. In terms of, how many times in the past have I put dishes on menus which just weren't right? A lot of work, and for things which actually the customers probably didn't really enjoy as much as I enjoyed making. Really sort of, working as part of a team. I mean, I think we all find our way into this industry because we are people, people. We love to be around people. It's really difficult at the moment. I think probably a lot of people working from home. If you're used to being, even when you're as a student, you're used to those interactions that you have every day. And I think it's really difficult for us as individuals to be so remote. But I think a lot of it comes down to knowledge for me. It's about sharing knowledge. I mean, I was always told as a young lad, which I'm not anymore, that knowledge is borrowed. It's not owned. It's something that you have, that you really get the real benefit from it when you share it with someone else. And that might sound a little bit sort of pastiche or cliche, but it's true. As you grow up through the industry, you'll start running your own teams and start to be in charge of things, and you'll have targets, objectives which are set, which are only really achievable when everybody in your team. Oh, what horrible cups that's got! If you can just keep that down a little bit. Wow, as if you do that.
He did it on purpose, Nick. He did it on purpose.
Yeah, turn your camera off. But so it's all about, I suppose, really, responsibility and accountability. And that's for everybody. Whether you're a manager or whether you are washing up. If your accountability stretches as far as making sure the plates are clean, that's a really important job, because your food can be delicious. But if somebody looks at your plate, it's dirty, that's not good. And as a manager, you can't manage a team that you're not part of. And I think that's a very, very important thing. So you can't sit in an office somewhere very remotely and make decisions and not explain them to people. All right. So I think it's all about testing yourself, challenging yourself, and looking at what you've done and what you want to do and how you want to get to your goals. I think we will all fail at some point, and you've got to feel the pain of that failure to move on. But don't wallow in it. It's learn from the mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Those people that learn from those mistakes grow and prosper and don't make them again, hopefully. All right, so I suppose if I go through a little bit of kind of where I started out. So I'm not from East Anglia. That's good or bad, I'm not sure. I grew up on the mean streets of Oxford, which is very rough, as everyone knows. But I started off, I did a BTEC at college. So before that, I did some work experience from school. I went to a hotel, Randolph in Oxford, which is a nice sort of 4-star, it's owned by hotels now. It was a forte. And that's kind of, I really kind of fell in love with the industry there. To see, to step into a kitchen with 30 odd chefs was just like remarkable. But I did everything now. I worked in the restaurant. I did 2 days in the butler's lodge, which I thought, wow, this is a really bad job. I think in the first morning I was there, I'd made 80 quid in tips, which back in those days, that was a lot of money, 80 quid. But it was amazing to be part of an organisation that from as soon as you stepped in, you could see how well run it was, and and how much knowledge was there. Some really, really good chefs. It was probably one of the best places to eat in Oxford at the time, because, but it just really sort of whetted my appetite. So after I left school, I did a BTEC national diploma, so hotel catering and institutional operations, which is kind of, I suppose, it's more of a 50-50 split. So sort of 706 1 and 2, 707 1 and 2, which are sort of the front of house and the kitchen qualifications. So that was a really good grounding, and so I did. Probably the first year I did some work experience at Lincoln College, which is one of the university colleges. So the chef, Jim Nurden, who did 1 day a week at the college, was the head chef at Lincoln College. And the first day I was there, was a bit of an eye-opener. You were sort of arrived thinking that I can prep chickens, And so there wasn't like 2 chickens on the bench to prep. There were like 90 for a function. You're like, my God. But you really learn what the difference is between, how you feel really busy. We always felt busy at college, but it's when you step into a sort of like more industrial sort of environment, you really see, wow, it's incredible. And he said that's the first day we went to his butcher, went to his fishmonger, and just to see somebody break down half a pig in like literally about 6 minutes was just like something I'd never seen before. I never saw that volume of food at college, and it was really, really interesting. So following from that, I then went to university, went down to Brighton, which was a wacky place, a really good place. I worked there at the Grand whilst I was at uni. I worked at the Grand Metropole at the end, which was really good, a really great town to work in Brighton, and it's it's a very good place to go out, but good place to learn. Really sensible, serious college. So I did part of my course. I had to do 2 stages. One was for 6 months previous to before I started, which I had a sort of went down to Brighton from Oxford on one day, and I found somewhere to live and a job. It was a wacky one, but I ended up working. I took a job in a nursing home. So I had 2 offers, one in a restaurant that was just opening, one at the nursing home. I had to do a dissertation at the end of my course, and it had to be linked to my work experience. So I went as a kitchen manager, which surprises me. There you go. But it meant that I had stuff to do a dissertation on, so I had to choose some sort of microbiome sort of disinfectant thing, and that's what I did my dissertation, and I got distinction. But if I'd have gone into a restaurant, I don't think I would have got that. I think it's really important for you as a chef or as a manager that you work in more than one area of the business. I think it's an eye opener. And then the second one was a 3-month placement. I went to Holland, to the Netherlands, to the Veluwe National Park, to this sort of really amazing hotel, sort of in the middle of the woods, called the Swilderbos, and that was a Monday to Friday. It was businessmen coming in, sort of like, and at the weekend it was real family, and they used to wheel out all the tricycles and stuff for the kids. And it was in the Veluwe National Park, which is a huge national park right in the centre of Holland, and that kind of really kind of whetted my appetite for working abroad and seeing what the rest of the world had, and it's so from there I went back to uni, finished off uni. I then did like a scholarship, so for 12 months at Metropole. So that was a small group in those days. I think Metropole was bought by Hilton about 20 years ago. But at that time they had 5 hotels for the Brighton Metropole. It had the Bedford, which was in Brighton, also Pembroke, which was in Blackpool. They had a really massive hotel, like 1,000 bed road, and then one at the NEC, which had 868 rooms and planning permission for 328. And I remember that because that's how many rooms. 328 was how many the Metropole actually had. And you think when you go to these places, they're all different, all like just incredible. They did a lot of sort of the party conferences. So, the Labour Party conference would go. So in Brighton, I don't know if ever you've been down there, but along the seafront, Brighton Centre, then you've got, I don't know if it's still the Holiday Inn, changed, haven't they, quite a few, Holiday Inn, then the Grand, then Metropole. But if you go from, the Brighton Centre and Holiday Inn, it's almost linked. So the back of house, so they can sit down literally. I think 3,500 people could sit down at the Metropole, and then obviously the Brighton Centre was just so they had about 20,000 people there for these week-long events. I've kind of lost my train of thought. There you go. Right, so from there I was doing this scholarship. So I went from across as a manager. So your end game really was to end up as a in a supervisory sort of junior management position in a hotel. So I did my 12 months. I finished off as assistant food and beverage manager in a Metropole. massive hotel. And I sort of sat there one night at, early morning, 3 a.m. as having to cash off all these sort of cash bars that we had. I sat in a room, no windows, at 3 o'clock with a massive bunch of keys. I mean, it's like a hula hoop, just full of keys. I was on the early DM shift, which started at 7. Just sat there thinking, what am I doing? Awful. I love cooking. I'd spent most of my 12 months actually working in the kitchen. I liked it. They liked me. It was good. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm gonna see where I can go with this cooking lark. So I went back to the university and I spoke to the guy who set me up Dutch thing, and he got me a job in France. Now it was in a ski resort. But I didn't know it was a ski resort. I'd never been skiing before. I got there. The first day I got there, walked out the back door, and there was like a 6-foot gap between the bottom step going into the kitchen and the bottom of the car park. You know, what the hell's going on? And then 2 days later, it started snowing. And snow was coming down like the size of beach balls, these flakes of snow. And then within 2 days, there were, instead of being 9 steps down, there was like 1 step going up to the back door. It was just like, I'd never seen anything quite like it. And so I spent 10 years on the continent. Really. So I did that winter, I did the summer in Zine, and then I went sort of south of France. I went to Austria and Switzerland, sort of summer, Italy. Did a little bit of stuff in the States. So roughly about 10 years spent abroad. It was only, I met my wife in America. Then we went backwards and forwards between America and the Alps, which was great. But when we had kids, that became quite difficult. You have to sort of settle down and put some roots down. So from there, I went to I opened a restaurant in Norwich, not my own restaurant, which was kind of doomed to failure. Really, it was in the wrong thing, the wrong place at the right time. So I left there, and then I went to the Leap of Care, where I met Chef Ascot. And I was there for 20 months, maybe 2 years. With fantastic restaurant. The owners are fantastic people, as I'm sure Chef Ascot will tell you. You've probably seen quite a lot of Carla down in the restaurant. Very exacting, Carla. She knows exactly what she wants, as Chef Ascot will tell you. She'll tell you when you're not doing things quite right. Kenneth, lovely guy, and they're like a really incredible team. There's a real synergy, and it's a really great place because it's not somewhere where you feel like they're just trying to squeeze every penny. After that, I suppose I chased the money a little bit. I went to the Prime Mill for what was quite a substantial pay rise, but actually not somewhere that I enjoyed. And I sort of segued via another place that I didn't really enjoy either, to Dead and Boathouse, which actually I really enjoyed. I think I'd got to the point where I wasn't really learning anything there. I was just kind of working. Then went to the Salt House in Ipswich, which was nice. It was a beautiful place. Again, probably after a year, there wasn't really much there for me. And then 5 years at Ickworth, which I think it's the first place where I really settled into somewhere where there was so much to do that 3 years had gone by and it felt like you'd been there for 8 months. It's kind of, everything was so quick, but really good. And I felt it was a really difficult place to leave because I left because I knew I had to, not because I wanted to. I then went to Congham, which I spent another 4.5 years there, which was another beautiful place. It went. He bought it out of administration from Von Essen, who used to own Ickworth. The connection was that there were 2 people who owned luxury family, owned the Ickworth. One of them went back as I was leaving, and the other one was a chap who took over Congham and spent, I think they bought it for about £300,000 or something, I think. And it's a 24-bedroom hotel with a spa, and that wasn't finished. But it took 2.5 years, and the whole place was refurbed. I mean, it's beautiful, amazing place. And again, I suppose you reach a point where you're not pushing. And I think that's where I found myself. And I like Bury, I like the area. I ended up moving sort of back down spent a year at the Oaksmere, which is a great place with sort of on-site butchery, walled garden, beautiful, 20 minutes from home. But again, not quite right. Then the Weeping Willow came up, 2 solid years at the Weeping Willow, being able to sort of plan it. I got there after the kitchen was bought, so I've done some slightly different things with the actual fit, but you couldn't ask for a more amazing place to work, really. Wonderful kitchen, amazing space. The owners, I mean, Peter was an architect, and you can see, you look at the building and you can see that it's just like how he even thought of what he'd done there was just ridiculous. Stand with your back to the bar, looking out the front, and you are in a 16th century pub. You turn around and you are in a state-of-the-art restaurant. His dream was to open a pub. Unfortunately, I think he designed himself like just an amazing restaurant, and it's as we know, it's not the same thing. Paula, infinitely more famous than Peter. I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. We used to get people come in and say, "Oh my God, is Paula Pryke in today?" And we had bookcases everywhere, and I think she's published something like 36 books. So she's in the world of floral design. She is like the Marco Pierre White of flowers. And then I sort of moved on to where I am today, really, to Adnams. So sort of exec chef. Took me about 8 months to get used to telling people that without feeling a little bit embarrassed, just in case someone asks me what I do. But it's I mean, I suppose the question is, I get asked quite a lot, do you miss being in the kitchen? And it's a really weird one, actually, because I do and I don't. I'm still day to day. I'm still hands on in kitchens. I'm helping, but I guess my job is to help people. Really, is to get to where they want to get to. Each property is different. We're not trying to make a homogenous mess of restaurants where and it's not right or wrong. Hungry Horse or anything like that, where and that's how they run their business, and that is completely fine. Ours are all different. They've all arrived at different times into the group, so you couldn't possibly, and you wouldn't want to make them all the same. So we've just taken back Soul Bay, which is like the original Adnams tap. So it's almost attached to the rest of the factory, and it is iconic in Southall, right next to the lighthouse. And that will be things like scampi and salt and pepper squid. And it's unashamedly a pub tap, a tap room. We're not doing gastro food. It's not going to be like Michelin starred food at all. We've got from that sort of going all the way up really to the Swan. The Swan is a beautiful building. Had a large investment in it, even larger when you start finding asbestos and stuff like that. So it was shut for a year. Which is, you add that loss of revenue to the cost, suddenly that starts to really. But they have done a fantastic job, and it really is stunning building. But I think all of them are, and it's kind of, I suppose it's difficult, isn't it? When you think of a pub, I suppose the pubs are closer to the core of business in terms of where they sit and how they feel. Because they are a brewer. That is the backbone of our business, is brewing beer. It kind of segued into gin. We decided, to control the quality of a gin, the most important ingredient is your vodka, and and that's why they decided to make the vodka. So you've got control all the way down the line. And then, so for us in the managed properties, so we consider managed. So we put our own teams in. Through those people, we will get those menus written. So I write the menu with the chef, and in the ideal world, the emphasis is on the chef to come up with the menu. My job really is is a buffer between the people above me and the chefs, is to explain what the word brief means, because chefs don't always understand what you mean by the brief, and it's about doing what it's cooking for your customers, which is essentially whether you're in a Michelin star restaurant, or you're in the pub, or you're in the community centre making chip butty or whatever. You're doing what people want. Take what people expect and try to do a little bit more than that. So I always say, think of a chip butty. You get Tesco's value bread with some oven chips and a bit of ketchup, or you can make some delicious bread, like Chef Ascot might do. Some triple cooked chips, and some homemade aioli. They're both chip sandwiches, aren't they? One of them has had an awful love poured into it than the other. I think that's, that doesn't have to be posh or fancy. It needs to be considered and delivered, in the right way. Sorry, any questions? I feel like I've been talking for about.
I'm sure we've got some great questions. I know the students have been preparing. So who would like to start? Georgia, I can see you on my screen. Do you want to unmute and ask Chef a question?
Yeah. I need to get it up.
Okay.
It's not a lot. It's not going to be a hard question, is it, Georgia?
I hope not. When you worked in the kitchen with the open kitchens, what was the hardest thing about it?
I don't know. I suppose you feel conscious when you first go into an open kitchen, and I suppose that we had an open kitchen at the Oaksmere, but not like the one at the Weeping Willow. The Weeping Willow was literally 30 metres of open space where we had people sat at that table. I think when you're busy, you kind of forget it's there. You are just doing what you're doing. And I suppose what's quite telling with the open kitchen was that we would have people sat at the chef's table looking in, and people would say, "Well, who's in charge?" Because everything just seems to be moving. So it's quite a big room as well, isn't it? So everything seems to be moving. It's because, well, actually, we spent time training people, but and everyone was really good at what they were doing. I didn't need to stand over them stirring and tasting their sauces. I know that what they're doing across all the sections comes in. It's hard to say. I think sometimes you see what's going on in a restaurant. So I can see that a table needs to be cleared before the front of house team do, because it was banks in front of me as well. So that was quite good. Sometimes I'd go out into the restaurant and I'd take food out if I'm sitting there for quite a long time. Cool, the questions are flying in.
They're all flying in, Nick.
Does that answer your question, Georgia?
Yeah, thank you.
I need to get one of these T-shirts, where it says "You're on mute." That's what you need, isn't it? Or like hold up a sign.
Okay. So the next question we've got, Nick, is from Anna. Anna, are you going to ask it, or do you want me to read it out?
I don't mind.
If you want to ask Nick, so he doesn't have to keep listening to me, that's great.
Yeah, can do. Would you recommend going abroad for work, and what experience and skills would you say you gained while over there?
Yeah, I definitely would. Let's try and remain apolitical about it, but I think what does sadden me about Brexit really is how easy it was for people of my generation. God, I really feel really old. That it was so easy to go. You're supposed to disagree there, Anna, and say no, but how easy it was. You didn't. All you needed was a passport. And like I said, I went off to Holland. Going to Holland, I realised that I arrived in a foreign country. I did Dutch in 3 months, which was like a cassette course with a little book. And I thought, it's all right, I can speak Dutch. I got sat on the plane. I had 2 books with me. One was an English-French, English-Dutch dictionary and a phrase book. And I thought it was all right. Then when the pilot says, we're going blah, 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 and I sat there thinking, oh my God, I don't have a single word he just said. But it was a really good experience, because if you go to Amsterdam, I don't know if any of you have been to Amsterdam, so imagine you're all interested in the Anne Frank Museum and stuff which is there, and those river boats, and they do other things as well, I think. But you go there and it's you learn a lot about yourself when you go away. It forces you to sort of make friendships and to speak to people and learn to communicate. They speak really good English in and they're not like the French. The French will. I worked in France for 10 years, and there are people that after 2 years tell you that they went to university for a year in Leicester or something. I was like, really? Because when I first got here, you didn't understand a word of English, and but I guess they're like us. We feel that people should learn our language, and I think if you go there open, go to America's great. Italy's fantastic. I love France. France is my favourite European country because it's just got everything. You go, been surfing in Osegor, been snowboarding in the Alps and the Pyrenees. It's got everything. But yes, you'll learn a lot, definitely.
Okay, and I can see Freya's got a hand up. Freya, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
It's being slow.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you now, Freya.
It says I'm muted, so
We
I'm not.
can hear you.
I can hear you.
I met you at the Passion to Inspire competition and the Suffolk Young Chef competition, and at both of them, you very much told like everyone your biggest advice was like seasonal foods, like throughout, fresh and seasonally. Has that always been like a really big factor to you, or is that just like come along since more information's come out and you've got experience?
No, I think seasonality is really important. Absolutely. I suppose when I worked at the Leaping Hare, we had a small kitchen garden. I think that grew quite a lot in terms of like became much bigger after I left. But when I went to Congham, we had a huge kitchen garden, and if you think of it commercially, what it costs you to, if you buy food in season, it's cheaper than buying food that's been exported around the world. If you get a carrot that you've grown that comes out of your garden, it doesn't taste anything like a carrot that comes from Tesco's, or Sainsbury's, or any of those. It's just a different product. And we had sort of like an acre of stuff planted at any one time. We had herbs and flowers, and you just it's really good to cook things when they're in season, and then when you get a glut of things, so when you get to autumn, you've got like apples, or you're making chutneys and you're preserving food. I think you understand, you never get it any product any better than it is when it's at the top of its season. So I think that's the reason really for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that great question, Freya. Finn, do you want to ask your question? Do you want me to read it out, Finley? I'll read it out. It says, what did you study at university, and if catering related, was it worth it in your opinion? So was it worth it to go to kind of a catering course at university? Yeah,
I did hospitality management. So yeah, I think it is. I think learning at any level is always worthwhile, as long as you are, if you embrace it and get what you can. You will learn. I mean, I've been chefing for a long time. I am old, but I've learned things from people who are washing up. I've learned, you learn things from people all the time. People will know things that you don't, and as soon as you think that you know it all, that's when you are actually in trouble. All right. So the good thing with being young is that you appreciate that you don't know everything. When you start not wanting to make mistakes or being safe, that's when you stop progressing in this industry. It's just a fact. So, yeah, it's definitely worth it. I don't think there's ever been anyone who's been to do any course where they haven't learned anything.
Brilliant. Finn says thank you. Jack, do you want to ask your question, Spooner?
Yeah. So within your career, what's the biggest professional decision that you wish you'd never been put in the position of having to make?
Great
question, Jack.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I suppose if I go back to Ickworth, which is, I don't know if any of you are working there or you've been there or whatever, but it's one of those places that is like incredibly close to my heart, as in like I loved working there. but it was such a difficult place sometimes. Stuff used to go wrong. I remember walking downstairs. I don't know if you've been there, but there's like a basement area, and walk down one stairs and there's just literally crap floating up through all the drains, like literally just like, and that's the kind of thing that would happen. One day we have 5 fire engines called out because the swimming pool was on fire. It's just, it was just one of those places where stuff would just go wrong. But I think the first 2 weeks I was there, it was owned by a company called Von Essen who went bankrupt, and just being put in a position really of having to tell people that I couldn't help them not get paid. Suppliers who were in good faith sending products in, and these guys weren't paying the bill, and that was really painful. And some of those people are really, really good friends of mine. I don't know if you dealings with like Richard from East Anglian Foods. 10 months they didn't pay his bill, and that really, really sort of hurt me. And I think sort of going forwards, you feel responsible personally for that, and I think that was a really difficult decision for me, a really difficult position to be put into. I guess you just have to be. I suppose it goes back. You're honest with the suppliers, honest with the people that you work with. And that's all you can do. You have to research the people that you work for. As much. So the interview process. And I say this to people all the time: the interview process is as much for you as it is for me. I want people to come and work for me, but those people need to want to come and work for us, and they need to know what the deal is. What we're going to do for you, what we expect from you in return. It was very uncomfortable. I hated that bit of the job. But actually, if I look at my 5 years I spent at Ickworth, I gained so much, and I guess. If I was to run my own business now, I understand money. I understand, if the numbers don't add up, you're never going to be successful, regardless of how good your output is. The most successful restaurant in the world is McDonald's. Not because it's the best food, because it is well run. It's well run, it's well financed, it's clean, it's tidy. Everybody knows what they've got to do all the time. It's not very exciting. The Big Tasty comes out is the most exciting thing that ever happened, isn't it? Big Tasty's out again. Grand Big Mac. Do you know what I mean? But that's what it is. So yeah, I guess I've got any massive. I've been to places where I really didn't like, but actually, sometimes knowing what I don't like is a very valuable lesson.
Yeah, great advice there, Nick. Definitely. Tessa's got a question. Tessa, would you like to ask Nick your question?
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Tessa.
Your career has always read like an incredible, sequence of amazing places that you've worked in. I just wanted to know really what the relative merits are of staying put in a place for a long period of time and moving as quickly as you have between some of your jobs, not all of them, obviously. But I think perhaps for the student audience, it might be worth thinking about that a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose somebody once told me, don't waste your time. Right, it's the most important thing that you're ever going to have in your life is time. Don't waste it, invest it. And I think if we've all had jobs. If you speak to anyone in the industry, we've all had jobs where we are learning something, but not really enjoying it. I think sometimes work shouldn't be difficult, it should be enjoyable. I mean, it's really strange. I sat here writing this list. In a couple of months' time, I'll have been here for 2 years. It really doesn't feel like I've been here for 2 years. Maybe it's because I'm old and I'm forgetting stuff. But I had other jobs where I was 5 months at the Choir Mill, and I felt like I'd been there for years. I felt like a prison sentence. And that's it. Do what you enjoy. But you need to set yourself some goals, targets, objectives. Short term, what do you need? Medium term, what do you need? And long term, where is it that you want to be 5 years? Be flexible with that, because actually that might change. I when I was 8, my mum tells me anyway, that I wanted to be a hotel manager. at 8. I don't think I'd even been to a hotel. But, you know, things change. Now I don't want to be a hotel manager, you know, but I think you've got to live in the now. You know, you've got to enjoy where you are, what you're doing, and the people that you're doing it with, because actually this industry is about people. It's about relationships. It's about working together to achieve something, you know, and that's, if you're moving forwards, then that's great. If you're learning stuff, that's brilliant. But what you need to do is to accept the lessons. You know, it's like I said about knowledge earlier. You know, it's not owned, it's borrowed. You know, but you need to be able to accept knowledge as well as to give it. That's very difficult. There are lots of people in life who will give you advice. There are fewer people who like to take advice. And that's, you know, you keep your mind open, keep your ears open, you know, and move on. Does that answer your question?
Fantastic, Nick. Okay, Keon, do you want to ask your question?
When you were traveling, obviously around the world, what country would you say that you gained the most experience and knowledge from?
Well, I spent a lot of time in France, and I really love. Like I said, I love France. It's such a beautiful country, and I suppose when you're away for quite a long time, so I was away for like a decade or more, you come back and you realise, you know, actually, you don't know much about your own country. Now I go on holiday to Cornwall. We've got family down in Cornwall, but I absolutely love Cornwall. I love the sea. You know, probably what drew me to Brighton was the sea. You know, I just love being near the sea. When you go down to Cornwall, I guess it must be, you know, South Wales, St David's, and places like that. They're just stunning places. You know, on a sunny day, 30 degrees. You know, you go to Kynet's Cove. You could be anywhere. You could be in Greece, maybe not Greece, but you know, you could be somewhere much warmer. You know, and I suppose that's what it is. It's about, you appreciate things. I suppose as you get older, you appreciate the things around you. When you're young, you think, "Oh, England's rubbish. I need to get out. I need to go." And you see, it's about people. You know, it's about and relationships really. But yeah, I would say, yeah, I've not been to anywhere. I mean, France is beautiful. Northern Italy is amazing. You know, if you like the Alps, if you like skiing and snowboarding, you know, you go to Turin, places like Milan are just incredible places.
Fantastic, thanks, Nick. Kim, do you want to ask your question? Can you unmute?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go, Kim.
What do you think would be the best route for an aspiring pastry chef to go down once college is finished?
Well, there's lots of places to go. I mean, pastry is one of those areas that there will be a massive call for, sort of going forward. It's because it's so specialist. But I mean, if you can go somewhere like Pump Street, you know, learn to, you know, bread making. They do obviously work with chocolate work, but sort of like Wonky Willy, you know, all those sort of things. They all do little stages that you can do. I mean, you are looking. I mean, there's so many good places to go. In obviously mainly in London and around. But I mean, what sort of pastry are you looking at? Are you looking at sweets and work in a restaurant and do that, or are you thinking more sort of
more like a bakery sort of thing?
Bakery, then yeah. I mean, Will Worcester, who is up the road from you, definitely needs to go. I mean, he is a really nice guy, very knowledgeable, great baker. Give Will Worcester a look up, because I think if you can get some experience and you can get a reference to Will Worcester, you know, but you've got Mark as well, both, who's in Bury, who's a very good baker. Those three, Pump Street, Friendly Loaf, and Will Worcester, for sure.
Funny enough, before lockdown, we were trying to get, we were hoping to him to go for work experience at Worcester. So.
Yeah, really nice guy. You know, he's down to earth, but like just so knowledgeable about bread, flour. You know, it's incredible. We talk about things which are quite simple. You know, you talk about the number of ingredients in bread, yet the skill is involved in taking those raw ingredients and creating something. It's just like mind blowing. But yeah, Worcester. Tell him I sent you.
Okay, we've got another question from Madison. Do you want to ask the question, Madison? No, I think that will be me. Oh no, you're there. Great.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. What's the biggest challenge you've faced being a chef?
Cool. Probably one of the things that stuck in my mind was really early in my career at Metropole. We had a function, and it was a 5-day function. It was 850 people for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 5 days. And at the first night we were there, we had these kind of rolling power cuts, and I was on veg, and so we had these big sort of Russian water boiler things, a bit like a big brat pan, but like a boiler. So it would be on for 10 minutes, and then it'd be off for 15 minutes, and we were trying to get this food out, and I'm just thinking, this is going to be awful. I can't do it. And the head chef used to come out of the office probably like once a quarter, maybe, because he had like literally just so much paperwork. And I just remember thinking, I'm looking at him, I think this is going to be really bad. And he's like, look, all we can do is what we can do. What time is it now, chef? 6 o'clock. What time is it going out? 7:30, chef. Right. By 9:30, 10 o'clock, we'll be wiping down and we'll be going home. So we can either worry about this or we can just crack on and get it out. And I think that kind of stuck with me. You know, adversity, things which don't turn up from suppliers, things which turn up but are off. You know, we all have little things to deal with. But actually, if you just break it down to the service time now, at 10:30, 11 o'clock, we'll be going home. I think it's just, you know, there's an end in sight, which is probably where we are now, isn't it? In terms of this whole sort of pandemic, there is no definitive end to it. You know, service starts, it finishes. Sometimes it gets a bit sticky, yeah, you know, but we'll get through it because, you know, we're here together and we're a team and we will pull through. That's kind of, I suppose that's a lesson, really.
Yeah, definitely.
I still wake up dreaming about that night, actually. It's kind of like,
I think we've all had those nights where you think, oh, it's never going to end, and everything that can go wrong goes wrong. But what you do find, I think, within hospitality is your team pulls together and somehow you get through it. And then you kind of, at the end of the day, you'll sit and kind of have a little reminisce and move on to the next day. So yeah, we've all been there, Nick.
That's it. Go and have a little cry in the dry stores or something.
Yeah.
You know, but then usually what happens is you feel it's been really bad, and then somebody comes and says, "Wow, that was a really amazing meal," and you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry about the delay." No, what delay? It's like, so it's just how it is. It's because, you know, what is important is, you know, to set your standards higher than people are expecting. You know, so people come in and it's, you know, it's a bit like chip butty, isn't it? You know, if somebody said to you chip butty, you know, you've gone to all those extra levels to make it something special and over and above what people are expecting. So, you know, our standards, when we fall below the standards we set ourselves, actually 9 times out of 10, they're actually higher than what people are expecting, or hopefully, you know. And I think we are our worst critics. So that's what I mean. So when things go wrong, it is all really down to the perspective that you take on it. So if you set yourself really high standards, which is a problem with a lot in this industry with chefs, you know, people become obsessive about this, you know, and it's obsession isn't healthy. You know, being dedicated, diligent, hardworking, conscientious, those are really good traits to have, you know, and it's because it's all about delivering consistently. You know, when you're obsessive about something, it borders on something which can be quite detrimental and can be quite destructive, and actually then can affect what you're doing in a really negative way. You know, so, you know, be dedicated, but sometimes you've got to look at yourself and think, wow, I need to cut myself some slack here. You know, it is only a chip butty.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Freya, you've got your hands up. Is that have you got another question, Freya?
Yeah, a bit of a curiosity question. Did you work anywhere around Brighton?
Brighton. Yeah, I worked at the Grand. I worked at the Metropole. I worked at that nursing home, which is very interesting. But actually, it was a great experience. I think people looked at me like I was insane when I said, "Oh, that's where I'm going," and they were like, "Why?" Well, actually, I've got to do a dissertation, and actually, what am I going to write a dissertation from doing veg at that Sale restaurant that I nearly went to? It's like, actually, I'm not going to get 10,000 words out of anything there, I don't think. And whereas actually, I met and worked with a lot of people that I would never work with. I'd never worked with people like that before, and probably never will again. But actually, you know what? I've got respect for people who go into those things, because you can see, go into some nursing homes and it is awful, and you go into others, Bupa and sort of like the more people are paying £1,000 a week.
Yeah.
To live, they're living there, they're not staying there, and that which changes, and they have different, you're having to liquidize, you're having to amend things, specialist diets. It's actually, we've kind of not gone all the way that way in the industry now, but we do need to tell people what's in stuff. 25 years ago, you could make a curry sauce and just say it's curry sauce, and somebody says, has it got peanuts in it? I wouldn't know. And whereas now, actually, we do need to know exactly what's in it. There's a lot of paperwork. But yes.
Thank you. I've got a question from Harry, but he can't join us because he's got an internet issue. But he asked, in terms of from a front of house point of view, what would you say is the kind of best qualities that you liked when you were working with your front of house team? What did you like to see?
Right. Okay. Well, I was always told the best front of house manager I ever worked with, hopefully there aren't any of them listening now, but it was a guy called Ian O'Hara, and this is at the Randolph. And he was a larger than life. I mean, he must have been about 6'5", or he felt like, when you're young. He was massive. He was Irish, but he always said, look, treat people as if these are your favourite auntie, your granny. They are coming into your space, and you want to make sure that they're having a good time and that they enjoy what they get. They get everything that they need, and everything that they want. And it's, looking after them from the minute they step in the building till the minute they leave. Taking the jacket off, I'll get this for you. You take it, you get it for them when they're leaving. And he was incredible because he used his eyes and his ears, and he could stand, and as a young waiter, you're sort of stood in there, and he's like, there's no salt, which is over the other side of the restaurant. How can he possibly know that? You go over to say, everything all right? And they go, oh, we haven't got any salt. And he just literally walks out the kitchen. It's because you would be sat there at your table, and you're doing this, and he knows that there's something missing off the table. And if it's a relay, sometimes when people put cutlery on and the glassware and napkins and the rest of it, they don't put cruets back on because it's the last thing on your mind. Because in that restaurant, it was high service. So when you finish your main course, the cruets came off. They crumbed down the table with this sort of like a machete with a back on it, where you just sort of scooped everything off and you removed it all. So if you didn't put it back on, it wasn't there. So when people come to use the salt and pepper, it's there. And it's just little things like that. It was about getting out and pace and timing and getting people to, sometimes you've got the chefs in the kitchen. The chef will never call the restaurant manager and say, just wanted to let you know that everything is going at exactly the right pace for me. That never happens. It's either speed it up or slow it down. You're sinking me. How many times have you heard that said? So, but he used to, he was amazing at managing people. He could manage the people on the table next to the one he was taking the order. Because they used to go down, he'd kneel down in front of them, and he'd speak loud enough so the people on the next table who were waiting to order could hear, where he'd say, right, come over there. So they didn't get angry that they weren't being seen to, because they could see he was busy, and he would, so one of them, he would get straight in, right, okay, so if you were a commie, you would have to go and take the check into the chef. So there'd be some that came in really quickly, then he would slow down, chef, and he would do laps. He was three times down the restaurant, once through the kitchen. Back. Chef, are we running low on anything? Chef, are we this? Do you need to sell? Ooh. And so it's about communication. So it's it's a really tough job working in the restaurant. And I think when you've worked in there, you understand and you appreciate what's going on. When you ever worked in the kitchen, you think that all those people are just bullies and oh come on, why can't they just go in? And it's actually, if somebody asks you for something, you have, that's what you have to get first, isn't it? It is a system, and I think now it's a very hard job. And we've noticed that here. The COVID, social distancing, and all of the extra work that's been loaded onto the front of house is massive. So for the chefs in the kitchen, actually, we're just doing less. Sorry, that was somebody. We're just doing less covers. We know, but we're at capacity, so it's actually quite easy. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are the same in volume because we've squashed our capacity down. Whereas actually, if you're having to take people's details, having to clean tables in between people, having to, there's so many more bits that have to be done by the front of house team. Hats off to those guys because I think it's tough.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. That was great, and definitely that's something that we've recognised from when we managed to do service, the additional duties, the time it takes from COVID. The guys have implemented, and they were all working during COVID before we were, so they were kind of a massive knowledge to when we came back. We were asking them, what are you doing in industry? And they've been fantastic at kind of sharing best practice and then implementing the best of each ones and making sure that we've got, that our systems are kind of taking bits and pieces from around Bury. So that was great. But yeah, definitely added to the workload.
No, definitely. Yeah, we spent a lot of work on sort of risk assessments and protocols.
Yeah.
I had to do those. Yeah. Those jobs where somebody else. Nick, I thought you'd like to do this. It's like, but when you break it all down, it's a lot of it comes down to manners. Social distancing. I suppose goodness only knows what it must be like somewhere like Italy, social distancing, because every time you see it, it's a very touchy feely. We're a little bit Teutonic, aren't we? With people we don't know, but it's about manners and allowing people space, and that's the same as what you do if you're working in front of house and guest is walking down some stairs, you stop, you let them go, don't you? And that's kind of, we do that between ourselves, and it all just flows.
It's implementing the new normal, isn't it? What we've now, this new normal of not kind of invading someone's space.
Absolutely, which is difficult when you're especially somewhere like the Swan, where we are looking for a slightly more intimate service than you would get, like the Harbour Inn. People used to come in, queue up around it. I mean, it's on about 9 different levels, the Harbour Inn, most of it underwater, and you kind of, you have to queue up, then you place your order at the bar. But you can't do that anymore. It's table service only. That was such a massive change, such a massive shift for the guests' experience. They just weren't used to, whereas we used to do 300, 400 people for lunch, we're now only able to do like 100 or 150. So, it's difficult. And it's difficult to adapt when you're really, really busy. It's difficult to sort of scale everything down, not order as much as you were because you're not seeing as many customers.
Right, so I think we've got one more last question. We've got Erin. Erin, do you want to ask your question?
I don't mind.
Yeah, go on.
What inspired you to become a chef, and what made you want to strive for executive head chef?
Sorry, say that again.
What inspired you to become a chef, and what made you want to strive for executive head chef?
Right. Well, I've always liked cooking, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying, but my mum wasn't a particularly strong cook, so survival was really why I started cooking to start with. But I was always doing sort of wacky stuff like food colouring in scrambled eggs and stuff like that, where people what the hell is that? It's like bright green scrambled eggs. I was always interested in kind of how stuff worked, and if you look at bread, for example, how do those ingredients make a loaf of bread? And I I was always quite inquisitive with that. And it's the same, you know, bread and beer. There's like a massive crossover, isn't there? Where you think, if you see the ingredients for beer, you would never think, oh, a delicious beverage will be made out of those, because it's just a random selection of stuff. And it's just the magic, isn't it? Sort of like chemistry, and food is very similar. It's like a mixture of art and science, isn't it? You know, especially with, you know, pastry. If you're going to go down the pastry route, you do have to weigh things. You know, where actually cooking sauce, you kind of weigh things a little bit, can't you? You know. So yeah, it's just that mixture of science and art, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. Has anyone got any other questions before we let Nick finish up? I think I'm really impressed with the questions that have come through, Nick. I hope they haven't been too difficult and you've enjoyed answering them.
Yeah, no, been very, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose, so I suppose in summary, you know, it's about you guys asking questions of yourselves, asking questions of your lecturers while you're there, and then going out into industry and making sure that if you don't know the answer to something, the only bad question is one you didn't ask. You know, and it's about, if you are working somewhere where people resent answering your questions, then you need to question whether you're in the right place, because you know that's knowledge. Like I said, is it shouldn't be a secret. It shouldn't be a secret book hidden somewhere with all of the recipes in there. Those recipes should be laminated or in a shared drive, so that, because actually good cooking is about consistency. You know, Tessa will tell you, Tessa has eaten in more fancy restaurants than all of us probably, and you see it. You know, it's about consistency, isn't it? It's not about one standout component on a dish. It is about a journey through your meal. You know, I guess as you move on as well through your careers, and you become managers and supervisors, you know, it's about how you connect with people, and how you work together. You know, I think through all of my years of cooking, I've never ever taught how to teach someone how to do something, not properly. When I first started cooking, if people weren't understanding something, they used to shout louder. You know, which is quite scary, isn't it? You know, you don't know that. You just become scared. You retreat. When you become scared, you don't take any risks. You don't develop. You don't progress. You just become safe. You don't draw attention to yourself. I also teach martial arts, and it was only really when I started doing that about 12 years ago, that I actually learned about the different learning types, how different people learn in different ways. You know, about setting goals and setting targets, and how to impart knowledge, but how to check back people, how to make sure that people really understood it. And I think there are a lot of lessons which you can take from those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be that. It could be playing football. It's anything that teaches you how to be part of a team, and how to achieve things, and to coach someone to coach you. That's what you need, especially when you first get out of college. You need someone who's knowledgeable. You know, someone like Mark Poynton or Lee Bye, or you know, the list is long. James Kahn, Justin at Peabody, Pascal at Maison. You know, you've got an embarrassing wealth of knowledge in West Suffolk. You know, Barry Snedden, Greg at the North Gate, another fantastic chef. You know, go to the Leaping Hare with Simon. You know, it's embarrassing how many people there are. So pick up the phone and get down there and that's it really for me.
Fantastic. Tessa, did you want to say anything at the end? Oh.
No, that was fascinating, Nick. Really, really interesting. And I think that message about asking questions and constantly learning is probably my biggest takeaway from listening to you this afternoon. And I think that goes for anyone, even people as old as I am. That, you know, you never learned a lot this afternoon, whether it's from Murray. Sorry, things going on. If it's Murray earlier on this afternoon, or you just now, Nick. So thank you very much, and thank you, Claire, for letting me earwig on all of this.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming, Tessa, and Nick, thanks for a fantastic session. I think it was great to hear your journey, but also fantastic advice on how to navigate through this industry, especially with what's going on, and just inspiring us and challenging us to always learn and see what's out there. Go and get it, especially when you're young. Those opportunities, you haven't got the restrictions, so go and travel the world, you know. And that would be my advice. Go and, you know, if you like something, go and have a go at it.
Absolutely. I mean, looking forward, you know, it seems quite bleak at the moment, but I think, you know, there will be a brighter day, you know, and that's what we've got to look forward to. I mean, for us, we're working on plans, you know, we're hoping to work much more closely with you guys. You know, work experience programs are looking at putting together some sort of scholarship as well in, you know, the next year. So, you know, it's really, really important that you put yourselves out there, and, you know, but try not to be down about what's going on at the moment, because, you know,
we'll be back, as they say, Nick, with a
we'll
bang.
be back.
Well, thank you so much for your time, both of you, and to all the students. I know you've had quite a long couple of sessions, but I think you will agree that they've both given you value, and I hope you've gained, you know, some valuable advice from both of those. Murray's a fantastic speaker, and so is Nick. So yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it. And this is what you get, guys. We're in hospitality. There's a network of people always out there willing to help and take you on your journey. So yeah. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and see you again soon, hopefully.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Cheers.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Speak to you both soon.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.